NHL free agency started with a flourish and has now come down to a grinding halt, but that doesn't mean there aren't some good players still out there. So today we're looking at 5 of the best free agency fits in the National Hockey League. We will start with Daniel Sprong, and I think he is a tremendous fit for the Vegas Golden Knights. The Knights lost a lot of heart and soul when they lost Marchessault and they lost Chandler Stevenson. They also lost a lot of scoring depth, and we saw in the Stanley Cup playoffs how important depth is and depth scoring can be. Daniel Sprong can be that guy. He is a dude that the analytics love, and he is someone that can go out and put up some numbers in kind of a middle six role. And so I don't think he will be that expensive at this point in free agency. Yes, Vegas is up against the cap in perpetuity, it seems, but this is, I think, a situation that mixes really well, and I think one that should be very interesting to the Vegas Golden Knights as they try to manufacture a little bit of depth here as the offseason winds down. Tyler Johnson, I have him going to Buffalo. Could also be a fit, by the way, with Vegas, and maybe some of that past playoff experience makes him a better fit there, but I have him going to the Buffalo Sabres. I feel like they are still a forward away, and honestly, if you bring in Tyler Johnson, you're still probably a forward away, but I know it was 9 years ago now, that run with Tampa Bay, but I still think there is something there in Tyler Johnson, and I feel like him being on a team that is trying to push towards a playoff spot is a good spot for him to land. And I think if you're Buffalo, if this year doesn't go the way that you want it to, again, that is maybe a valuable piece that you can move as some center depth at the trade deadline. So either it works out and he helps your center depth and you can finally make that push into the postseason, that long-awaited push into the postseason. I think that if it doesn't work out, you can still flip it for a third and try to continue on that way. Kayden Addison, I have him going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins have 2 defensemen in Letang and Carlson who could get banged up at any moment. Now, every team has 6 defensemen that could get banged up at any moment. It's the National Hockey League. But I do think that adding a little bit of defensive depth may help. Addison is still a young piece, and so it's not just like an all-in thing. It actually gives them maybe something down the road. I'm not saying you lock him in at 8 years at $2 million or anything silly like that, but I think with Addison, you feel comfortable with him being someone who is kind of behind Letang and Carlson, but can contribute, and at his age, that you might be able to uncover maybe a diamond in the rough or something along those lines. So I think Addison is an intriguing piece here for the Pittsburgh Penguins as free agency kind of continues on. Alex Nylander is the next one, and I have him going to the LA Kings. They just signed Quinton Byfield, which, by the way, I like that Byfield contract. I know for listeners here in Calgary, I was on Sportsnet 960 The Fan chatting with Logan Gordon about this the other day, and Logo maybe wanted a little bit more, even if you had more term, even if you have to pay a little bit more, so you're not walking him right to free agency. I still think this is a player who has had one good season in his time in the National Hockey League. And so even if it doesn't necessarily work out, the dollar amount is fine. And if you have to pay extra on it later, I think the LA Kings will gladly do that. But they do still need a little bit of extra scoring. And maybe even a lot extra scoring, quite frankly, in a very competitive Pacific Division. And I think Nylander can help with that. I still think there is a good player there in Alex Nylander. I just think he has wound up in bad situation after bad situation. And maybe the Kings, from an offensive standpoint, are another bad situation, but I think we can get him there, and getting a little bit more offense out of an Alex Nylander, and maybe getting a little bit more out of the overall roster with the LA Kings. And the last one is a sentimental one. Max Pacioretty to the Montreal Canadiens. Pacioretty has dealt with injury after injury, basically in his entire post-Montreal run. And it has been actually really, really disappointing to see how things have gone for a player that I like a lot. And so for a Montreal team that maybe could use another adult in the room, maybe could use a little bit of an extra scoring punch, I know it didn't end great, but it's some new guys around. Maybe, just maybe, this work. And I'm not saying he finds his 35 goal scoring touch from last season or anything of the sort, but I do think that maybe you do find a little bit of something there, and maybe he can be, like I said, a valuable adult in the room if for a Caulfield, for a Suzuki, who he very much understands the pressures that player is going through right now. if they do, like if Demidov hangs around for the Canadiens this season, I think there is absolutely something there that you can get excited about in bringing in a Max Pacioretty to the Montreal Canadiens and make that maybe a bit of a better fit on down the line. So that is, those are my top 5 NHL free agency fits right now. It's obviously, we're winding down and it's pretty quiet, but I think those would be some interesting moves that could potentially happen.